My name is Almas Giovanni. I am the president of the National Canadian Committee of UN Women. In the light of the current revolution, Arab women from around the Middle East have proven themselves to be dynamic leaders and powerful advocates of change. From the Horn of Africa all the way up to the far eastern fringes of the Middle East have been affected by sweeping changes brought about by the Arab Springs that have toppled the dictatorships.
The Arab awakening has been at the top of the agenda for all of us, but it's hardly alone there. And there are so many other examples I could point to, but the real point here is the world is fast changing. It's going to keep changing, and we will either master that change or be overwhelmed by it. And my intention, working with all of you and with our colleagues at the State Department, is that we master the change, that we're smart enough, nimble enough, agile enough to figure out how to stay ahead of it and to harness it on behalf of the important work we do.
Wir wollen, dass dieses Volk ein Friedleben und aber auch tapfer ist, und ihr müsst friedfertig sein.
Make no mistake, that's exactly what we've been doing. From East Africa to Southeast Asia, from Europe to the Persian Gulf. And though often out of sight, our progress has been unmistakable.
In fact, what she also forgot to mention is that the tear gas and the tanks that are driving into protesters, the concussion grenades, are all made in the United States. That is the meaning of $2 billion in military aid, military and economic aid.
Most Egyptians see the United States as having stood solidly by President Mubarak while the government here grew more and more corrupt, and they see the Americans as complicit in it. And just today, for example, when we were out on the streets, this is what a lot of people were showing us about American involvement. And if you could see in my hands, this is one of the tear gas canisters, and very clearly written in English on it, it says, "Made in the USA by Combined Tactical Systems from Jamestown, Pennsylvania." And they say this is the kind of support the United States has been giving to the Egyptian government.
We have embarked on a journey that will enhance U.S. national security, the security and stability of our friends on the African continent, as well as contribute to global stability.
And let me be clear, our Africa Command is focused not on establishing a foothold in the continent, but on confronting these common challenges to advance the security of America, Africa, and the world. And so the final area that I will address is conflict. Africa is not the crude caricature of a continent at perpetual war. But, if we are honest, there are wars over land and wars over resources. And it's still far too easy for those without conscience to manipulate whole communities into fighting among faiths and tribes.
We're expanding its sphere of influence on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of election, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military.
It goes back to one thing, oil. It changes the calculus always with U.S. foreign policy when it's a country that is seen to be rich with this resource that's become almost an addiction for the U.S. and the global economy.
China has been investing heavily in Africa for some time. The African Union said they are now looking more to China for money and less to the West.
With its population of 1.3 billion people, China is the second largest consumer of oil and competes with the United States and Europe for energy. And China is looking to Africa for oil and other resources. Chinese officials are currently trying to negotiate a deal with the Nigerian government to buy oil. The U.S. and Europe have the biggest oil companies operating in Nigeria, and a Nigeria-China deal would put China in direct competition with those companies. China already imports oil from other African countries such as Angola and Sudan.
Do you think the Americans are worried that the Chinese are increasing their grip on our oil patch. Well, the Americans, to put it bluntly, like to keep all our oil for themselves.
Well, maybe in certain respects you can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, there's political opposition to the Keystone XL pipeline that's holding back that approval.
Citizens from every background in Canadian society, First Nations, union leaders from the labor movement, including the union president for the oil sands workers, Dave Cole, Maud Barlow of the Council of Canadians, elected First Nations officials all crossed the line today in an act of peaceful civil disobedience to send a clear message to the Harper administration that the Keystone XL project is unacceptable.
Canada's Prime Minister Stephen Harper announced last Friday that China's state-owned oil company CNOOC would be allowed to buy Nixon. The $15 billion deal gives the Chinese company control over one of Canada's largest oil sands projects.
Is what's happening, is the emerging new order, is it good for America? What should Americans make of it?
Well, I think in general, Americans are in favor of human rights, freedom, democracy. At the same time, we recognize that this process can be hijacked. It can be hijacked by both outside and inside elements within any country.
You want democracy. You speak about democracy. Can you control democracy? Should you control democracy? Or do you have to take the chips and let them fall where they may if you want democracy?
We want to work with those forces within societies that are yearning for change to make sure that they have the support needed and, frankly, the technical assistance, the financial assistance to be able to make it through to what is a good outcome, what they've asked for in their online blogs and in their posters and in their interviews.
Confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Growing concern has been expressed to me about the use of foreign money to really overload the public consultation phase of regulatory hearings just for the purpose of slowing down the process.
They have an agenda, and it seems to be ideologically driven, and it's financed, without exaggeration, by billionaire socialists in the United States, people like George Soros.
The creation of a new world order.
$9 billion spent by the United States Agency for International Development on promoting Washington's democracy initiative.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
A new model for influencing a target country's internal politics in favor of U.S. interests through financing, training, support, and guidance to pro-U.S. forces in foreign countries.
To understand U.S. foreign policy, one must first understand a very basic fact. The U.S. government wants to dominate the world.
This is what democracy promotion brought the people of Honduras. While USAID requests $800,000 for strengthening governance and democracy in Honduras, journalists and activists are being brutalized and killed under the U.S.-backed government. In Egypt, a revolt against the U.S.-backed policies of the Hosni Mubarak regime has mobilized these agencies to co-opt opposition groups, ensuring the result of the upcoming elections will be beneficial to Washington. Wael Nawara is a member of an Egyptian opposition party that received funding or support from many.
NDI, the IRI, the people like Carnegie, of course, bombed the project of Middle East democracy, the NED, National Endowment for Democracy.
USAID has implemented democracy promotion initiatives in over 100 countries in the past 25 years. According to USAID's website, spending $10 million in a target country increases its amount of democratic change fivefold. How much of your tax money would you like to go to promoting democracy in Venezuela?
No, not that much.
Would you be okay if foreign governments were giving our politicians money for the election campaign?
No, that would bother me.
And herein lies the hypocrisy.
We have a very clear law on the books prohibiting foreign governments from interfering in our elections, of supporting any candidates with money. So we do exactly abroad what we prohibit at home.
What are the key ingredients to starting a color revolution?
I think that there have to be a real political and social crisis which may be a kind of inspiration for those groups who protest. So I'm sure that there's no colorful revolution without social basis. You have this social basis, you can very easily manipulate all these social groups which are protesting and all these social groups which are ready to protest, but you have to start with a common consciousness of some economical or social problems which are real.
So the problem has to be economical or social rather than a regime problem, like a dictatorship, for example.
Yes, about 90% of every society, including the societies of Central and Eastern Europe, are first and foremost interested in the social and economical interests. They are just worried about their economical prospects, about the possibilities of keeping their families on a certain social level, and this is the most important factor in every revolution.
So what is the share of people power versus the power of the people who actually pull the strings?
Every one of these protesters has his own interests, his own ratio to participate in the protest. But anyway, it's really very easy for him to lose his rationality and to become a subject of emotional engineering, I would call it.
But once the revolution actually takes place and most of the people then realize that they've been subject to manipulation, what's their reaction? Are they disheartened, or they don't really care because their objectives meet the manipulators' objectives?
Well, usually they don't realize that they are a subject of manipulation.
Is the United States always present in this kind of projects?
I'm not sure if always, but in most of the conflicts. But to be honest, United States have the best experts in this sphere. We have Jenny Sharp and his Colorful Revolution technology, his Colorful Revolution handbook, actually.
George Soros?
Yes. Oh, George Soros is a sponsor, and but Jenny Sharp is an ideologue and let's say a man who invented the whole technology. I don't believe that United States don't use this technology, because I have just returned, for instance, from Syria. This is the technology used.
So you think Syrian uprising is closer to what you would call a color revolution?
In Syria, when it comes to Syria, of course you had the economic basis of the protests, but there was an economic basis for peaceful protests.
Il va s'enfuir à cause que je vais brûler son cœur. Alors il veut pas mourir. Alors il va s'enfuir.
Hello, I'm Marovic, Ivan Marovic. In 2000, my friends and I brought down Slobodan Milosevic. Ever since, I've been traveling the world and teaching people how to get rid of their pesky dictators. So I have come up with these 3 easy steps so you too can get in on the action and laugh your way to freedom.
Make politics sexy. I hate politics. Politics sucks. It's boring. It's not cool. Normal people hate politics. But you need normal people if you want to make change. So in order to do that, you need to make politics sexy. Make it cool. Make it hip. Revolution as a fashion line. Ooh. The regime uses repression to raise fear. So in order to lower that fear, movement needs to increase the number of people that are targeted by the repression, because that is going to make the repression weaker. 10,000 people in the street is news. 10 people in the street is obviously not news. But 10 people in the street doing something crazy, now that's news. So if you have only 10 people, do something crazy, something funny, do something engaging, do something that will reveal the problems of a society in a humorous way. Excuse me, did I say easy? English is only my 5th language. I meant to say 3 hard steps to get rid of a dictator. But you know, once you master a recipe,
You can repeat it over and over and over again in any occasion.